Okay, guys, welcome back. On the first program we created, we're working with just displaying information to the screen. So the second program we're going to work on now is we're going to work on learning about data types and variables. So I've got some. See here. So what I always tell students, there's 8 primitive data types. Okay, so here are your primitive data types: byte, short, int, long, float, double, Boolean, char. But there's only 4 that I've really ever used. I've never used a byte. I've never used a short. Um, I've never used a long or a float. I always use int, doubles, booleans, and chars. Okay, so let's kind of look at. We start off with numeric data, and the 2 that I said I used were ints and doubles. Now, ints are for whole number values. So think about a variable like age. Okay, so my age is 37. All right, so that's a whole number. Only little kids are like, oh, I'm 3.5. Okay, that in the real world, an age is a whole number. All right. If you're going to use a double, that's for decimal places. All right, and the computer scientists, they came up with all these different ones because they wanted to be efficient with how data was being stored. In the past, computer hardware was extremely expensive, and ever since globalization and setting up factories overseas, computer component prices have gone down for years, decades. And so, if I asked you guys to think of a number, you guys could think of essentially any number, and your brain could come up with whatever. Remember, computers, and you looked at this with, like binary codes. It's all memory. It's all ones and zeros. So your computer has to efficiently be able to store the data that you want to use. And so if you're going to use, for instance, like a human age, I don't think there's any humans that are older than 127 years old. So that would work if that's what you're working with. So you might want to use a byte. That would use less memory, and thus your program would run faster. But if you were looking at like the age of the planet, byte wouldn't work because the age of the planet is, I don't know, what is it, billions of years old. So that number, a billion, would not fit inside a byte. And I'm gonna show you guys that here in a second. But for most practical purposes, an int works for most whole numbers. Okay, and same goes for double. Any decimal place, a double. I mean, this is a huge value. Okay. So I'm gonna go into Java and our NetBeans and show you kind of what I'm talking about here. So if I create a new project, and it looked like on the first discussion questions, most of you guys were fans of gaming. So we'll create, a new project here and call it, I don't know, we'll just call it gaming, uppercases, gaming 1, okay, and say finish. Okay, this creates your gaming 1 Java cup. Let me move my camera over so that you guys can see it. Okay, so I open up gaming, I open up the source package, and I'm on this gaming program right here. Now I figured out how to get the font larger, so hopefully you guys can see it. So all computer programs do 3 things, all right? Except for that first one where you're just displaying stuff. But all computer programs do 3 things, okay? And I'm going to write these down here. Let me open up my little sketch pad. So programs Okay, they do three things. One, they define / declare variables. 2, they assign variables. And 3, they display variables. So these are the three things all programs do. You have to define or declare. That just basically tells the compiler, hey, I'm going to use a variable, and it's going to have a data type of whatever data type you give it, int, doubles, char, or Boolean, okay? And I'll go over those in a little bit. Then you must assign the variable some sort of data, okay? And you actually use the assignment statement, which is just an equal sign. You guys learned about equal symbols back when you were little kids. And then finally, you display your information somehow to the screen, and that's why last class period or last lesson we were displaying our information and figuring out how to do that. Okay, so let's close this and get back to this. All right, so we were saying we're going to do a game. So oh, and I forgot to talk about strings. Let's talk about strings a little bit here. Okay, a string, uppercase S string, is actually not a primitive data type, but it's kind of treated like that. They can hold anything, and so you put them in quotes. So my string is going to be, my string name is going to be, let's call my gaming name Slayer, okay? And so what this is doing to the compiler is saying, hey, I'm creating a string. Its name, its label basically is name, okay? And it's going to store the word Slayer in it, and that's in double quotes, okay? Strings are in double quotes. Now, you could do it like this, okay? Okay, I just showed you that. Let me, you could do it string name and then semicolon, and then on a separate line, you could say name equals Slayer, okay? Java's kind of nice where you can, either define your variable or you can define and assign it, okay? So, I'll go through all the different ways. So, let's say Slayer has int num lives, and that is equal to, like, they get 4 lives before, he dies and he has to, restart the game, okay? Now, one thing here, make sure you guys can name your variables whatever you want. They cannot be keywords, okay? Keywords are in blue here, like this word public and class and package and static and void. The keywords are, they're used by the, the Java compiler, and you can't use them. You can create what you want, but don't use the keywords, and make sure your variable names make some sort of sense, okay? That's for readability. It would make no sense if my numLives variable was called ABCXYZ, okay? Next one, let's say double, my score is 55,456.75, okay? But I got to give it a name, so I got to put score there. Notice I had an error there, okay? Next one, chars. My character, I'll just say gender, okay? And that is equal to Slayer is a male, so I'm just going to use an M for male, okay? So a character variable stores a single character inside a single quote, okay? Don't get it confused with a string. Strings are in double quotes. Characters are in single quotes, all right? And finally, last one is a Boolean, and maybe we call the Boolean play again. So Slayer died, and you got to input information and you want to play again. Okay, Booleans hold either the word true or the word false. Okay, so notice how that's fine there. If you don't want to play again, you just say false. Okay, so now what we can do is we can come down here and we can do a bunch of system.out printlns. Okay, all right, so my name is name. Okay, so what's going to happen here is it's going to print name, and then this plus symbol is going to concatenate my name variable that I assigned up here. So it's actually going to display Slayer right here. Let's see. So run says name Slayer. All right. I can do system.out.println, and we'll say number of lives. Say plus num lives. Oops. Okay. I can do system.out.println, and I can say my score. That'll display my score. Oops. And this would be gender. And I forgot. Okay, so you have to have a plus symbol in here, okay? That concatenates it together, all right? And then finally, play again. Maybe I got a question mark here, and I would say play again, okay? And so if I run this thing now, okay, it says Slayer, number of lives, play again, character, gender, okay? And so all we're doing in this part is just assigning variables, okay? Now, one thing, let's say, you know, let's look at this real quick, because let's go back to here. Remember, we can only hold whole numbers and integers, but the whole numbers can only be from negative 2,147,483,648 up to positive 2,147,483. So let me put a positive number, 2147. Okay, let me put this in here for lives. Okay, let me show you this. 2147, because this is actually really important. 2147,483. Okay, 2147,483, 647. Okay, 647. If I play that, watch what happens. Okay, I can display that number, right? But if I go one number bigger, 648, look it, integer is too large. Okay, so it's up to you as the programmer to figure out if my integer is too large, then I have to switch to using a long, which holds a longer integer. Okay, but like I said, for the most part, I don't think I've ever had to use a long in any of the programs that I've built. Most everything I've used is an int, but it's your job as a programmer to choose the proper data type so everything works properly. Okay, so play around with this for a little bit. I think next lesson we'll learn about the arithmetic operators. I mean, arithmetic operators are really easy. There's some new ones you probably haven't seen if you haven't programmed before, but you guys are used to like plus, minus, multiplication, and division. But play around with this and enjoy. I'm going to stop this.